Amazon, specifically, the reports are essentially that Barbara Broccoli, Michael G. Wilson, both of them who have been deeply involved with James Bond for a very, very long time, and who reportedly, Barbara Broccoli had been calling Amazon effing idiots behind the scenes for wanting to do things like make James Bond gay, or make spin-offs, or do things like this, or change just elements of the character. Essentially, that those two moved now away from James Bond, that they have made a deal that Michael G. Wilson, who's getting a lot older, is going to retire, and that's probably much deserved. He is a much older man now, and that Barbara is going to go on to do other things. They're going to remain co-owners in a lot of ways of the franchise, but the creative control is now going to be with Amazon. I know I'm not breaking this news. There's a lot of really good James Bond focused channels that have covered it already a little bit. I'm more of a variety channel here, and I do want to give a full disclosure here that I am someone who recently became an affiliate with Amazon. That doesn't mean that I'm sponsored by them or that I work for them, but essentially I can make lists, I can link things to you, and if you decide to buy something through that, in my description down below, I make a commission. Now that said, I have never been someone where, regardless of if I'm making money around, from, or through them, pull my punches when it comes to criticism, whether that costs me opportunities or not, and it has a lot in the past. To me, this is something that is kind of worrying. Not because Amazon is necessarily like never makes good shows or good movies, but because it's a company that has always focused on quantity when it comes to creative ability, I would say, like shows, movies, etc. I personally think they've always focused on quantity. Like, how many things do we have? We need more. We need more things. How many things have we shipped out? Even when it comes to physical items, we need to ship out more things. And something that worries me is when you focus on quantity, a lot of times what can suffer is quality. This can suffer if you're shipping out 1 million packages a day and you're not putting packaging material in them, something that I've had happen before in the past because of rushed orders. It can happen from things like greenlighting 10 spin-offs to something, and then maybe one of them is good, or maybe you greenlight too many seasons, you're pushing too much, and then a show decreases in quality. This is stuff that has happened with Amazon in their ventures before. So it's something that does worry me when it comes to Amazon being in creative control of James Bond. It's something I want to talk about for just a couple more minutes. My question of the day for you is, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that this is a good thing? Will it get the ball rolling? It's been a very, very slow process to get James Bond movies during the entire Daniel Craig era, and there had been a lot of problems where it was like with Quantum of Solace, they pushed too fast to get it out, where they were trying to do it during a writer's strike. It affected the quality. And then there were other ones where it took years in between, like the gap from Skyfall to Spectre, and then Spectre to No Time to Die. They were pretty big gaps. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts in the comments down below on that. Now for me, when it comes down to it, something I've noticed in the world in general is that as we automated the world, things went from handmade and slow to mass-produced and fast. And that was with things like cars, all kinds of things. It's just something that you can see through the world. And as we tried to outsource work, work sometimes went from something that was high skill or high pay to other places where people were willing to take less money to do it. Maybe the job wasn't done as well because people aren't being paid as well. There's not as big of an incentive to do well. That's just a general economic statement that you can see in the world. Why does that apply here? Well, because it's something that has happened a lot as well with creative ventures. As there have been pushes, especially from companies like Disney, to do the constant spin-offs, the constant next series, the constant new thing, sequel, prequel, whatever. What it does is it can water down a brand. You look at brands like Star Wars. You look at what has happened to Star Wars, where I would say there's more misses or mids than absolute hits. You look at what's happened to Star Trek, where out of all the series they make, it's like, you know, when they started pushing really fast, there are some that are done well, there's a lot that are a mixed bag, and there's very few that are very, very good. This is what I worry about with the future of James Bond. And I know that other YouTubers, like I watched Calvin Dyson's video on it, and I've watched a few others, seen some, you know, insights from other huge James Bond fans, have pointed out what they think Amazon needs to do, which is map out the movies as movies, not as an entire franchise that you're trying to milk. What worries me, though, is that that is no longer the common way of doing things. The common way of doing things is not, yes, I'm an executive and you are the creator, you probably know what will work, however, I'm gonna have some limitations on you so you don't go crazy. That's what it used to be. Nowadays, though, the expectation of film is often executives have way too much creative control. Business people have way too much creative control because a lot of these things aren't seen as art by them. They're seen as, and I've said this before, a pathway to more personal riches. You know, a pathway of, well, if we make the Moneypenny show, maybe I can afford another car. Oh, if we make the M prequel, maybe I'll be able to buy another yacht, or maybe I will be able to reinvest in a second beach home. And not actually how do we distribute this success around, how do we make the best possible thing, and how do we plan for the longevity of and the future of our franchise. You can say a lot of negative things about people like Walt Disney in their life, but something that was very important was quality. Something that was very important during that age of Disney was how are these things going to last for the future? And that's not something that we see as often now with executives and people in a lot of power, is the idea of how will this fare after me? Things are very humanist, they're very human-centered, they're very, I have X amount of years on the planet, how is this success going to benefit me, maybe my children, if you even have any, which is another story for another time as that's gone down in terms of people having them. A lot of the focus is on their own success. It's not on the success of a brand, not on the success of art, not on the success, say that quickly a bunch of times, of creatives, and not on the longevity of myth, of modern storytelling, modern myth. How do we keep James Bond relevant? Not just how do we keep James Bond relevant right now, not just how do we keep him relevant for 5 years, but how do we make sure that what we make now, that what we make over the next 15 years does not make James Bond ruined, lesser than he was, or diminished in any way in 20 or 30 years if we pass this modern myth off to someone else. Those are the questions that you need to be asking when you are diving into something that matters so much to so many people. How do we not only do a good job now, but do a good job in the future? Or I should say this, set it up like an assist. Set up the next group that comes in for success. Because something I've noticed in the world is that there's less and less of that mentality. And it's something I worry about with this changing of hands, because even with that mentality, quality over quantity, there were still misfires. There were still mistakes. Even with years in between some Bond films, some of them did not land with people. And that's pre-Craig even. You know, post-Craig, or during Craig's tenure, it's true too. But even pre-Craig, this is true. So it's something I worry about when you already had these problems, you already had some things not land, you already had issues beforehand when you focused on quality and you were not pumping out a quantity. So now that you are focused on a company that is very, very much a quantity-driven company, and, you know, they do a good job with that. Like, they get packages out very quickly, a lot of them. They get shows out pretty quickly, a lot of them. But now that we are now with that, I am concerned that these issues could be exacerbated, that these issues could be heightened. There could be more of them. And that's the thing I worry about is if I have kids and my kid is 20, you know, in 25 years from now or something like that, I don't want them to look at James Bond the way a lot of people look at Star Wars now. I don't want them to look at it and think, man, this seems like it used to be cool, but this has got a lot of problems now. What are they doing? I don't want that for that character. It's a character that I think is misunderstood, misrepresented by a lot of people as just some dumb, fun, stupid thing, and they don't look deeper at the character in any way. They don't actually see the literary aspect of the character. And so I worry that people will come in, use this as a throwaway money printer, and that the quality will decrease. I very much am concerned about that. I hope that's not the case. I'm interested to hear your thoughts down below on what you think. All of this stuff, as always, will be in the description. We have other channels where we talk about all kinds of stuff. Those are down there. We have a podcast style Let's Play channel We have a more anime focused channel, we have an RPG focused channel, all kinds of stuff. I already did mention the affiliate link. Like I said, you know, though, when it comes down to it, that does not affect my personal criticisms of anything. So all that does is help out the channel. We have a Fortnite code. We also have our own store, cosmobunny.shop, where we sell coasters, keychains, trays, and more from recycled paper. These are different things where, like, comic books, manga, magazines, all kinds of stuff, they get damaged. A lot of times they don't even end up in recycling, they end up in landfills. What we do is we take those, we transform them into something new, try to operate by the principles of fair use, taking something from one medium, completely altering it, changing it, preserving some of that paper, some of that stuff, transforming it into a new piece of art, and then recycling the rest. So that's over on our store. DJAY123 is the discount code for that. I don't want to sound negative. Like, I don't want to be negative about this whole thing. It just concerns me, because James Bond was already not a franchise that was perfect. It was already one that did suffer from some problems. And now that you're changing hands, especially to a quantity-focused company, I do worry about how that will affect its future. Let me know your thoughts. Have a fantastic day. Leave a like, subscribe if you enjoyed it. I always appreciate those things. As always, everyone, stay shui.